Every couple is gonna fight. The problem with a long distance relationship is it is so much harder to overcome those arguments when you're long distance.
The thing I'm wondering is, why do it?
Honestly, it's love.
That is Patrick Maziarski, and this is Tiny Conversations. I'm Brian Colley. Patrick is this amazing force of positivity and love. And almost as long as I've known him, he's been in a long-distance relationship. And if you're like me, when someone tells you they're in a long-distance relationship, you might think, oh, that probably isn't going to work. It's not that I don't have faith in the people or the relationship, it's just that long-distance relationships are hard. And the few times I've met Patrick's partner when he's been visiting from Vancouver or LA, I've noticed this energy around them that makes me think, this is gonna work. At the time of recording this conversation, Patrick was about to finally move to the same city as his partner in LA. And while they've done this once before, it seems as though this move is gonna be more permanent. At his going away party, I pulled Patrick aside to ask him about the hardships of having a long-distance relationship, how he and his partner have made it work, and what fears he has about moving to LA to be with his partner. Here's that conversation.
I think you've been in a relationship as long as I've known you.
That's not true. When you first met me, I wasn't, but I was broken up with my current boyfriend. We broke up and got back together. Let me break down the saga of our dynamic. No, let me break down the dynamic of our relationship over the past. We're about to hit our 4-year mark, our 4-year anniversary, minus a 5-month break when we were broken up. And for about half of that time, we were long distance. We actually began our relationship long distance. He was living in Vancouver, I was living in Toronto, and I ended up spending the second half of a trip to Vancouver with him, totally unaware of how I would feel when I had to leave Vancouver. But I came back to Toronto and we somehow maintained a healthy relationship just by talking every day, getting to know each other, no expectations at that point. And it was tough, not seeing someone that you were just getting to know. We would meet up somehow, some way, up until the point where I got a contract in Vancouver and I moved there. So finally we weren't long distance anymore. I was working out there. We moved in together and it was great. And then 2 years went by and it was mostly great, but then circumstances kind of tore us apart and I was actually about to start a contract in Toronto. So with, everything that was happening in our relationship and job-wise and career-wise, I decided to break it off. And I came back to Toronto. I've been here now for 1.5 years, but 5 months after our breakup, we got back together. So he was in Vancouver still, and I was in Toronto again, and we were long distance again. And we were like, are we fucking crazy for doing this again? But there was some force that was like, you know what? Yeah, there's distance, but there's so much love here. So yeah, it's crazy, but let's give it another try. Well, he moved, 3 months after we got back together to Los Angeles. It added a whole other level to our relationship that was really hard to digest. And with the long distance and all the changes in his personal life and professional life, it was like a wrench was thrown into something that was already a very delicate relationship. And we went back to that same kind of regime where we made sure we had a plan to see each other 6 weeks after we had seen each other. So 2 months wouldn't go by where we didn't see each other. And that was hard enough, but as long as we stuck to that routine and I knew the next time I was going to see him, we managed to do it. We talk every day. We FaceTime, we Skype, we send each other messages throughout the day. There's always communication, which is great, but it is still the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Hey, as you're saying all this, the thing I'm wondering is, why do it?
Well, you would not be the first one to ask me a question like that. And my partner has been asked that question many times as well. We've been asked that together. Honestly, it's love. And I haven't experienced love a lot in my life, but I know when it's real. We looked at each other when we were getting back together. He was visiting Toronto, and that's what kind of exploded this whole thing. When we saw each other again after not seeing each other and basically not communicating for 5 months, we decided to just meet for coffee, something innocent. Neither one of us had any idea of what it would be like or what would happen. But I honestly thought it was just going to be a friendly little catch up and he was going to go back to Vancouver and that's it. But when I saw him, this energy just erupted inside me that I didn't expect. At first, it was totally like nothing was emotionally charged or anything. It was just catching up. And then all of a sudden, this wave of emotion hit me and I basically just burst out into tears. And he was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I am feeling something right now that I can't really process." And basically the next 4 days were this divulgence of what we'd learned about our relationship and like what we'd gone through over the past few months and how much we missed each other and like how we still felt for each other. And we could have easily just been like, you know what, we might be feeling this way, but we can't, like, there's nothing we can do about it. We're not going to do that long distance thing again. But we didn't. We said, we love each other. Let's give this another shot.
One of the pros with the distance is not compromising your time, really. I mean, there's compromises, but it's not as pressing as if you two were living together. But now you're both going to be living in LA. So what are your concerns?
This is actually going to be a completely new dynamic that my partner and I have never experienced because we've either been long distance or we've lived together. We've never lived in the same city, but not lived together. So now approaching this living in the same city again, we're not moving in together. I've made it clear that to myself, more than anything, that I want to make this move for me and my personal feelings. And I don't want it to be just about the relationship because I think that's too much pressure to place on my partner, too much pressure to place on me. I want to make sure I'm going there for me first. And so with that, I'm getting my own place. I know people in LA and I'm going to try and cultivate my own group of friends so that I have my own time and space, even though we're in the same city again. So what scares me more than anything is that this is a new dynamic that we've never experienced. What if we get to the same city, we're not living together, but there's some disconnect that comes up and like light is shed on this new problem we have because, you know, we were good at being long distance. We were good at living together, but like we're not good at living in the same city, but not living together. So I worry that this change will bring up new situations, new problems, new concerns, you know, and that's really been on my mind. But aside from that, I'm really just excited to be in the same city as my partner and essentially date again.
How do you think the two of you will address that?
If issues come up, I strongly believe we're going to address them more maturely than we've ever done before, just because we've gone through a lot of stages in our relationship, including those stages where you're fighting like kids about stupid things and you're not really discussing them. I think one thing that getting back together after being broken up for 5 or 6 months did for our relationship was allow us to really see the things that were petty and see the things that were, you know, worthwhile fighting for. And, You know what? To be honest, I'm not going into I'm trying as much as possible to go into this new phase of our relationship not being naive. You know, we've broken up before. I'm totally aware that we could break up again. And I think that if that were ever to arise, I would just deal with it with a little bit more poise and maturity than I did once upon a time, because there's nothing we haven't fought about or discussed. There's nothing taboo. And I think it's just our manner of approaching these serious relationship scenarios and situations. It's completely different than it was 4 years ago. So that gives me a bit of a peace of mind. And like I said, I don't want to be naive about it. And, you know, I was naive once upon a time in my relationship, and it made me feel very uncertain and, you know, skeptical and withdrawn. And now I'm kind of I'm like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I have to embrace it. You know, like some situation might arise that makes me hate my partner and we break up. Well, that's for the future to tell. But until something presents itself, I'm going to be fully immersed in my relationship, because that's until something is wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong.
If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, you can hear the full unedited conversation on our website, tinyconversations.com. When you're there, you can also click on links to subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher, and I've also put up Patrick's Twitter account at postpat if you want to ask him anything. You can ask me anything by sending an email to brian@tinyconversations.com. And also, if you've been listening to these episodes and you like them, please add a review in iTunes. That would really help me out. Our theme music is by Broke for Free, and I tweet at Brian Colley. Thanks for listening.